All set.
Thanks, Charlie. And good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our webinar, Stories from the Field, Community Accreditation for Produce Safety, otherwise known as the CAPS program. I'd like to start off by just saying this presentation is supported by the Food and Drug Administration. Thank you so much, FDA. My name is Billy Mitchell, and I work for the National Farmers Union, Local Food Safety Collaborative. As the FSMA training coordinator, FSMA stands for Food Safety Modernization Act. The National Farmers Union is a grassroots, producer-driven organization that believes strong agriculture is the basis for thriving communities. And I'll just add a gentle reminder, if you're not on mute, go ahead and click the mute button. You might ask yourself, well, what's the Local Food Safety Collaborative? The Local Food Safety Collaborative is a cooperative agreement between the National Farmers Union Foundation and the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. Provides outreach, education, and training to small fruit and vegetable growers and processors on the Food Safety Modernization Act, otherwise known as FSMA. And there is a network of partners across the country working to implement food safety projects and expand reach. And I'm so excited today to talk about a food safety project that's not affiliated with LFSC, although we do work very closely with them on different projects. And so our agenda is today, me, Billy Mitchell, will start off with these introductions. Our first speaker will be Hans Estrin, Produce Safety Accreditation. Hans, a word I'm not going to miss having to say over and over again. Produce Safety Accreditation Program Coordinator at the University of Vermont Extension. Following that will be farmer Joie Lehouillier from Footbrooke Farm in Vermont, and then Angus Baldwin from West Farm in Vermont. And they'll just be sharing their experiences with the program, what they've learned, why they do it. After that, we've got a generous amount of time for Q&A, and that's a great time to come off mute, work the chat box. Then we'll have a little closing wrap up, and we'll say thanks to y'all for attending. So just a final gentle reminder, if you're not on mute other than Hans, please go on mute, and we'd love to see your faces, your cats, your dogs, etc. So if you'd like to be on video, please be on video. With that, Hans, I'll stop sharing my screen. And then I'll go ahead and I'll do my best to make you the host.
All right, thank you, Billy.
You're welcome. And so Hans, to the best of my knowledge, you're the host now.
So I am, that's great. All right, folks, welcome everyone. And yes, Community Accreditation for Produce Safety is, the program was founded in 2014, 2015, but really goes back to 2010, and the community part is really what we're thinking about here, because what came down the pike with the passing of FSMA was this knowledge that most of Vermont farms, probably the vast majority, were not going to be covered under the rule, and yet they're selling into big markets, and everyone saw the writing on the wall and said, we got to get out there and say how we as small diversified farms are doing things. How are we meeting these widely accepted standards that were in USDA GAP at the time? So we got together and did practical produce safety stuff starting in 2011, and then the CAPS program starting in 2015. And I just want to give a real quick jump into what the CAPS program is, and kind of how it works. So that's my whole role here, and I can do it fairly quickly, and then I'm going to really just hand it over to the folks that really matter, who are actually in the program. So why do this? And again, the reason, people have enough on their plate trying to process, many pounds of greens. But really what we were after is, okay, we got to sell that stuff. We really got to hold our market and build market integrity and reduce risk at the same time. So we were all about this kind of multiple benefits right from the start, and having growers and the Agency of Ag and the buyers all pitch in to help define these standards and okay them. And yes, there is a certificate that goes with this program. There is a third-party review. It is either virtual, online, or on farm, depending on the tier or level of CAPS. CAPS Plus certificate you see here means an on-farm review, which is needed for some of the bigger buyers. And so CAPS has also done, again, multiple benefits. So we're really trying to make produce safety to kind of go out of the actual spotlight. It is just part of running a really good farm and doing it sort of lean and clean production flow, dialing in a bunch of stuff. That's really what we're after. How do we sort of analyze flow from field to the customer and keep things lean, efficient, clear, saying, good systems and clean? How are we reducing risks? How are things kept tidy and good repair, that kind of thing. So what does that look like? In the plan, it's fairly in line with a lot of produce safety plans, but there are some differences. So what's in line is, farm map, verify employee training, have a good standard for that, good cleaning,
Hey, Hans,
set routines.
I'm sorry. So y'all, we've had a little Zoom goofiness where we can't make co-hosts. We only have hosts, which means I can't actually mute y'all. So I won't call you out, but if you're not muted, will you please mute yourself? Because somebody's got this this noise in the background that we can all hear. So
it's a clicking noise, or like
someone's
clapping your hands, and it's beautiful noise.
Blaine, unfortunately, I think it's you. I'm going to call you out. So Blaine, if you can hear us, if you can go on mute. And Hans, sorry for the interruption.
Okay, thank you. All right, so just jump back in. So we're talking about the SOPs, but routines and photos, bin management, cleaning, daily resets, leafy crop production flow, water and manure management. Those are records, but not a lot of daily records. It's more a plan to really dial in your setup and SOPs. And again, these photos are right out of the CAPS plan from in this case, Footprint Farm, and it goes with an SOP. And so this is the produce safety plan. You'd see this in line in their text. We also have, if I can actually advance. Yeah, so, with the cleaning routines often go with photos, and, you're uploading what you're doing. At the end of the day, these things can be put on the walls for employees. But again, small diversified farms, we're not that you see in the picture. We're not talking about big multi-million-dollar operations, generally speaking. How are you dealing with bins? When and how are they taken care of? That's all in the plan with the pictures. This from Blaze Farm, again, pictures right out of their produce safety plan. How are you dealing with employees? When are they getting trained, and how? So just really dialing that in, and a lot of fun ideas and pictures around keeping employees together. So actually using the training to help, build community and bonding and some positive crew culture. So CAPS has been, growing. We started 2015 with a pilot, 25 folks, to today. This year, we're expecting about 155. So slow, steady, not crazy growth, but very continuous. And again, the farms that are in it are, of probably most, I would say, the leading farms in Vermont that are selling to bigger markets are involved in CAPS one way or another. And also farms in New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, New York, Maine, as well. So around the Northeast. Another thing about CAPS that's interesting and confuses a lot of people, but is helpful for growers, is that it actually runs, the timeline is not annual starting January. It really is annual, but it is overlapped. So you draft a plan in the spring, and then finalize that in early summer, submit a few records, and you actually submit your final records. The final due date is November 1 for the online certificate. It's earlier for the one where audits are needed on farm. But what that does is it creates this system where you are working, you're in progress during the season, and your certificate from last year is still good through the season when you're in progress. So it's an overlapped kind of system. It works well. The timing of it does. So with that, I'm going to just turn it right over. That's a brief look at what this program is all about: third-party reviews on standards, scoring, revision of plans, and then records that are updated later. And I'm going to turn it over to Joie, who is here and is one of our star Footbrooke Farm, helped get this program off the ground and a lot of experience. So Joey's going to say a little bit about their farm and why they're doing caps. Joie, are you there?
I'm here. Hi everybody. So yes, Tony and I own Footbrooke Farm in Johnson, Vermont. You can see the picture, overhead picture there. It's a 100-acre farm. We produce about 30 acres of vegetables on the farm. Everything from artichokes to zucchini and everything in between. We grow about 140 different varieties of vegetables. So very, very diversified. When you go into our farm stand this time of year, everything in there is grown right here on the farm. So it's an undertaking for sure. So we have the farm stand right on, like I said, on the farm. We're right on Route 15 in Johnson. So we're on one of the busiest highways that there are in Vermont. So we're really fortunate with that. We also have 3 small wholesale accounts. And then of course our big wholesale account, which is Deep Root Organic, which is a trucking cooperative that a bunch of farmers in Vermont and Canada all got together so that we can truck our produce out of state. And because of that, we had to have a food safety program. I don't remember how many years ago that Whole Foods decided that we had to have one, but they did. And we started off with the GAP food safety, but anybody that knows that program probably understands that it was really kind of set up for really large farms. And that we're maybe doing a couple crops or one big one. So it was very cumbersome. We did do it and we got through it, but it wasn't the right plan for us. So I think throughout the years, Hans and a bunch of other people were trying to find a solution for us small farms that were diversified, that really needed a plan that could kind of capture everything that we were doing. So that is kind of our why did we get into it. As far as how it's been going, it's definitely been a process. And I think we did start off when, we were in the planning phases. And so, there was a lot of, how would this work for you? How can we kind of cater this around what you're doing? But I'll tell you, we never would have been able to do it without UVM and Hans and everybody else that, Vegetable and Growers Association. We really needed them to kind of create the plan for us and then be able to kind of cater it around our farm and how we were going to make it work. But we have a really great support system here in Vermont, and they've all been amazing at helping us get it done. So that's kind of how it's been going. And one thing I really want to say is with CAPS and the website that's been built around it, once you do all of that hard work of how is your farm going to be food safe? What are your SOPs going to be? What are your plans going to be? Once you can get all of that information down and into the website, managing it from there is very manageable. It's not a hard thing to do once you actually put the plan together, but it is a work in progress all the time, and making sure that you get all the information in there definitely takes some time. And we have an employee that helps to make sure that it is carried out as well, which that's extremely helpful. One thing we learned, I would say, is that having a plan is a great first step to making sure that you are being safe. And that was something I also didn't really think, you can put a plan together, but unless you're going to follow it, it's not, you're not going to be food safe. But it was a lot easier to actually roll out and get employees to buy into it than I thought it was going to be. Employees actually like to have a plan. They like you to be able to tell them how you would like things to be done. And then they're pretty awesome at following it. So that has been something that that we learned. We also learned that it's a work in progress, and you can always make changes. You can always be um, more. You can always get better at it. Um,
Joey, can you describe the photos, what's going on in this photo here, just with the sink? And I know that this has been part of another program, but it kind of relates to what you're just talking about, the plan that employees can see and the SOPs are clear, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I'll let Tony talk to this too because he built the whole thing. But we won a grant to get this 3-bay sink in our washroom in our barn. So lots of vegetables go through this 3-bay sink, anything from our lettuce greens to our zucchini. But Tony can talk a little bit more about like what we add and how we go about it.
Well, I mean, what watch? So, I mean, every step of the way, you know, I feel like, you know, we've always tried to do a good job with food safety and tried, you know, to keep our bins clean and, you know, all the different things that need to be done. But with this grant, we definitely, it's allowed us to upgrade our washing facility a little more. We have a barrel washer in that room also. So this is more of the retail sink. We do a lot of greens through here. You know, we do run all of our summer squash, zucchini, cucumbers through the triple wash. It's just taken us from like a single wash tank to something that is more professional and up to date. It's, you know, I feel like we're just moving a little bit closer to hopefully perfection over here, if there's anything like that available. But you know, we're always trying to do the best we can. Can't say enough about how great it's been to work with Hans. And you know, the thing is with new growers, there's going to be a learning curve. They've got to learn more stuff too. You know, and it's a huge help to have, you know, a group of people that can look at your situation and even help you improve it. So it's all for the best to have this system. If you were involved in gaps, there wouldn't be any help. You would have to be on top of it. You'd have to be commercial mainstream, just know everything, which gosh, I guarantee not every farmer knows everything. And just this really you know, just kind of improved our system. We got better signage. It's like Joey said, a work in progress.
Yeah, and we're much more efficient with a plan. Farmers don't always like to have something added to their workload. And at first it was, oh gosh, we have to do one more thing, but it's actually become a real positive thing for the farm. We've become a lot more efficient in a lot of the different things we do. And I'll add one more thing, a surprising positive is with this CAPS plan and with the website, because I upload so much of our information into the CAPS website, I always know where it is. I don't have to go finding things when somebody needs something, a water test or any of the maps, or you know, everything is in one spot, and that has definitely been really helpful for us over the time. So it's been, you know, a positive thing, and we have appreciated being forced into kind of forced into doing it.
Thanks so much for those words, and kind words too. And yeah, it's sort of a, you know, from the coordinator end, can feel like a little cajoling or arm twisting, but it definitely is not. I mean, I can tell that the growers are really appreciative because it's something that they're generally wanting or needing for doing their job right now. And so we're trying to make it doable, but also, reduce risk and give, help to give some multiple benefits while we're at it. So we'll probably come back to Footbrooke with some questions, but we're going to hop over the mountains here, headed west, I think in the direction this picture is facing. I might be right about that. And over to West Farm in Jeffersonville, not too far away, couldn't quite throw a stone, but it is fairly close. And we have Angus here, who is the main farmer at West Farm and can tell us a bit about their place and why they hopped on and helped with this, develop this program. So Angus, are you there?
Yes. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I'm Angus Baldwin. I operate West Farm. We are a 10 acres of production. We sell a lot of stuff through the same cooperative that Footbrooke does, Deep Root Cooperative. And so we're a little bit unusual in that we're pretty small, but we are also doing a lot of wholesale, which means we need to have food safety certifications. I had my first FSMA inspection last week. So yeah, we joined CAPS in 2017. I believe it was 2017. And I found it very accessible and easy to get started and get the plan going. I've been aware and familiar with GAPS. I've looked into it, although at this point, from what I understand, it's all harmonized GAP, and that is at our scale, it's not something that's even attainable to us. I don't think we could afford it, let alone manage it. So yeah, we joined in 2017. We get the audit every year. We're working on getting the leafy green supplement, which is another thing that buyers have been requesting. The whole team at Vermont has been great. It's also an open source website, so you can look at other people's plans and kind of see how they're doing things. You're not kind of building it by yourself from scratch. You get to kind of climb the shoulders of others who came before you, which is pretty helpful. I find that CAPS is much more so about building education and culture around food safety, whereas a GAP is more about record keeping and logs. And from my perspective, logs don't make people safer. They just add onerous chores and tasks to people's lives. And not saying that anybody would ever falsify a log, but the opportunity is there. So I feel like Hans and his team have really built something that engages the growers in a positive way and supports them, so that the outcome is actually better long-term, because you have people kind of buying into this whole idea that this is something that I can do no matter how big I am, and it's achievable. And it doesn't have to be super complicated. It doesn't have to be super expensive. It doesn't have to be super onerous. It's just kind of, how do I think about managing my risk? And that's kind of, we've grown a bit since 2017. So it's, for us, we've been kind of growing with that, building that culture, so that we're keeping the main kind of points of consideration of where contamination can come in mind as we kind of build out our operations and refine our production. So like now we have a wagon that we can put bins of ice on, pallets, ties in bins, knives in bins. Nothing needs to cross-contaminate with soil where employees are walking, and when we're out in the field, you can see there's a black tub there. We put our boxes in that, and that's it makes everything cleaner and gives us the peace of mind that we're not going to make anyone sick, but also it means that my boxes aren't covered in mud. So that kind of looks better for the customer, and it makes us a better farm. I mean, I think this is something that Joie touched on and that Hans has preached, is like this makes us a better farm. It's not always something that is agreeable, but it allows us to be more organized and more efficient and really think about the direction things are going in and how we can meet that in an attainable way. So, you know, if I can do it, I think anybody can do it. So, you know, cleanable surfaces, keeping things from cross-contaminating with soil or other things, having first aid supplies, having a system for clean baskets, field baskets. Yeah, this is something I'm super excited about. Hans, if you can go back one. I finally got a hands-free sink this year. I can't remember how much it cost, like 150, 250 bucks. But I wish I had gotten that like 4 years ago. I mean, yeah, it's hard to spend money sometimes, but like we wash our hands so much more now. And I would say that the hand washing hasn't always been perfect, but now it's easy. And if you have your hands are covered in mud or blood or whatever it is, you don't have to worry about contaminating a sink handle. So you just shove your knee into the sink and rinse them off until they're clean, wash them with soap. And then we've got the other thing was a real paper towel dispenser. You know, as small farms, these aren't things we're kind of used to or thinking about, but it's added a lot of value to the farm. And I think the employees appreciate it as well. So yeah, it's just a kind of been building that system, that kind of culture and mentality throughout the crew of like, this is how we're managing our risk. This is why we do this. Clean things are for clean things. Dirty things are for dirty things. This is what we wash. This is how often we wash it. And this is our process for washing. And just kind of making that management part of our weekly and daily routine, which it's also keeping us more efficient and organized. It's really easy to be chaotic and disorganized in agricultural production. So I appreciate the kind of the nudge in the right direction of being able to find things and being able to use things without having to clean them first every time I want to use them. And yeah, just more kind of like everything's up off the floor, nothing touches the floor, rodent control, washable surfaces, everything's well lit, accessible. You know, we're still building our system because we've been just building the farm, but it's I found it was really in line with, for the most part, with my FSMA inspection, and it made me ready for the FSMA inspection in a way that I don't think GAP really would have. You know, one picture I don't have is I got a controller for my cooler that I can walk by it and see that it's working every day. I don't need a log to keep track of my cooler, but it is nice to know, like, hey, I don't need to call the AC, the HVAC guy right now because my cooler is 60 degrees and it doesn't feel like a cooler anymore. So yeah, those small things kind of come out of just being in this program of just how we can do our jobs better.
Great. And this is a fairly new upgrade you've done, I believe, right, Angus? And
yep. Yeah. So yep.
Go
ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say, you know, there's money spent some places, but it doesn't have to be super fancy. And Angus has figured out a lot of this stuff just from being in the community. And I think that that's, you know, maybe one of the points that I really want to drive home is that what I've learned is that two things. First, this isn't really rocket science. And two, growers know most of what they need to know already. I mean, there's definitely the PSA training is great. They're going to learn some stuff. And it's really important to understand how to do things, have a roadmap. But I'll tell you, they really know what is, where the risk points are, when things break down on the farm. And so instead of saying, here's the standard, you say, what is your plan to achieve, you know, this reliability, this reduced risk? Where is the risk? Where do you have risk points? And the growers are going to be able to answer that invariably. There's no hesitation, and they're pretty right on with some of that basic stuff. So actually just defining the plan based on where you think the problems are. And that's really what's behind CAPS mostly. And then sharing that broadly so that growers in the community can norm to some of the models. And I'll just stop there.
Thank you.
Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, no, I mean, thank you, Hans. Joey and Angus, I just want to say your farms are beautiful and you all just sound like amazing people to work with. I mean, Joey, you said your employees are awesome. Angus, you pointed out that the improvements you've made are helpful for your employees. And I'm glad that there's people like y'all out there in the world growing our food, working with people. Angus, I love your excitement over the hand washing sink. It does look awesome. And mud and blood are two realities of working with vegetables, and so it does just seem really nice. And Joey, what you said about having a plan in place, especially the benefit to employees, we do see that a lot, that the employees really do love it when something's written down, and even the way that it's written on your produce sinks, dirty, clean. As someone who's been able to be a dishwasher, you'd be amazed how many new employees, even in a restaurant, will dump all the dirty dishes onto the clean side or vice versa. And so just the care that y'all have taken to make produce safety accessible on your farms is really inspiring. And so we do want to open it up to questions from the audience. So if you want to come off mute or put something in the chat box, now is the time.
And I'm going to get rid of being host. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's great. If you want to pass the host back over to me, I'm happy to take the responsibility.
All right. Should be done. And thank you, Billy, for that.
Oh, I have a question.
Shoot.
All right. I'm curious what the conversation sounds like with buyers, especially buyers that are accustomed to that HGAP certification.
What the conversation's like?
Yeah. How do they receive it? Like, have you approached new buyers with it?
Yeah. It's not always an easy sell because there's a conflict, right? The buyers, especially from the quality control and assurance and liability side, want to be able to check a very known international standard box so that they've done their due diligence. They don't have to worry about it. They know, and I get it. And we really do get it. And early on in 2015, it became, when we started the program, really clear, for example, that we need an on-farm component of this. And Hannaford was a big buyer, and they sell to Delhaize, and they worked with us to design this pilot. So they were in the know, and we had a bigger buyer on board for that level. So that was like step one, but still, every other buyer we had to sort of convince, and a lot of buyers were like, no, we're not going to do it. Or they said they're going to do it. And then at last minute, it's like, oh, our corporate boardroom decided no, period. And so it hasn't been easy. It's like, I wouldn't say it's not fake it till you make it, but it is just putting yourself out there, getting the growers out there, talking with other states. So Massachusetts, Commonwealth Quality Program, Rhode Island, Maryland, all have state programs. And then the Agency of Ag as well in Vermont has, putting and designing this around their FSMA inspections. So we're really kind of putting our eggs in this basket. And then Whole Foods and Wegmans last year, like right at the last minute, said we need harmonized GAP standard or equivalent, period, for leafy crops, and they weren't going to budge on that. And that's fine. And so we did a real thorough benchmarking of the CAPS program for, the leafy green side, and just, it exceeds the harmonized GAP in a lot of ways that have to do with some things that aren't even in the plan, in the harmonized GAP. But it definitely falls short in the record section for daily record keeping, cleaning, that kind of stuff. So we added this LGS component. It's sort of in, on the fly, which basically for those high risk crops will meet or exceed the harmonized GAP standard. And that's what we're, as a pilot last year with few growers. We have 10 growers, and Footbrooke Farm is involved in that this year as well. And I believe Angus, you are doing it too, right? Aren't you in progress with that?
Yep.
You're right. So we have two of the LGSers here. So that is what we're doing. We're working with Massachusetts Quality Program. The idea is just to have some of these dialed in state programs join together and around a common standard and maybe an umbrella of some kind of authorization or stamp. We were tossing around the idea of something called the Northeast Market Approved, group, like that kind of thing. So, because we recognize that it's really needed. We really need that standardization, but we don't want to lose the personal and connecting with service providers. I mean, this is full service and it's really valuable and we don't want to lose that part of it.
Angus?
I would say it's needed nationwide. So thank you for doing this.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to what Hans was saying, which is that it is a collaborative marketing effort between the farmers, the state, and other people to really sell this stuff to these corporate chains. And Deep Root does a lot of kind of promoting and marketing the CAPS program and working with Whole Foods and Hans. Luckily, they accepted the LGS program last year. And I think USDA also accepted CAPS for one of its programs last year. So it's growing. I 5 or 6 years ago, I would have said the buyers are never going to care and they're just going to tell people to pound sand. But I think that I'm not so cynical. But it does mean that a lot of people have got to buy into it. And I think the best reason to do that is because it actually makes the food system safer rather than just creating a system of accountability that I'm pretty skeptical about how much safer it's making the food system.
Thank you. And I just wanted to pass the mic over to Cal for a question.
On the liability side, do you have an insurance policy or what's to protect the school if, say, an outbreak's associated and there's lawsuits involved?
Yeah, it's been a while since I looked at the details of our policy, but yes, we've spent a good deal of time getting some different quotes and putting something together. And I would say, if what you had mentioned actually comes to pass, everyone sues everyone maybe, and who knows what's going to happen. But, our biggest concern, I think, was actually less an outbreak because, it's going to be shit hitting the fan, excuse my language, and more also around if we had to not award a certificate and a grower lost their market because of it. And that's really important. This holding liable for markets, and so that the insurance was for that as well as the event of something. And again, it's not a huge policy. I think a few $1 million liability, something around this, but I don't have the details in my head. It's not an easy thing to insure necessarily.
The growers in our co-op are all, we all have to be insured for at least $2 million. Plus our co-op also has got its insurance policy. I doubt anything's going to ever come back toward Hans. I don't see that as a possibility. But yeah, I mean, Whole Foods wants even more. I think we might even be up to 5 million for Whole Foods now. But you just have to get the insurance plan because you just got to have it in case someone comes after you, no matter whether you did anything wrong or not.
I want to add one other thing about the buyers, that there's tension in corporate for something like Whole Foods or even Hannaford's with the close to home program, tension between the liability end and the marketing end. And this is a really interesting point as far as I'm concerned, because the marketers want to have full transparency of these awesome local growers Angus and Joie. They want them right there with the product, like little holograms standing there talking about the food. That's what they want. But the liability folks want to check that box and have assurance, and there's tension there. So that is something where we're working, trying to bridge that gap, potentially trying to bring to a point of sale. What does it mean to run a good farm? We have the technology now to do that. So how do we add value to this that really brings home that value for everyone, not just the growers or the liability people or the marketers, but the win-win for everyone, which could be a point of sale, like educating the public around this is what it takes. Those pictures that you see, that you just saw about these, with the bins and the set points, and this is what it's like. And anyone could look at that on their phone, for example, if they wanted to, or something, and who are buying product.
And do you do all the on-farm visits yourself for the 38 or so to the CAPS Plus, or did you train folks and certify them in some way to be able to come out and do it, or?
Yeah, so this is really franchisable model, and there is the third party, so I'm not involved in the verification. I'm a support for the growers to get their plans ready, and the Agency of Ag, we're the same auditors. They're involved in the PSR inspections, and that group, the produce team there, does the audits. And we have also trained a couple of other folks to do some out-of-state audits, and we have Quebec farms as well. So ideally, the idea is that actually, so if another group, it could be any group, it could even be a group gap or something, some group of growers could easily adopt this kind of platform. The idea is solid, and you can come up with those standards, and then you train third-party folks to come in and verify that what is being done is actually happening on the farm. And that's the model that I think is pretty solid. And this has nothing to do with the actual standard. It could be used in dairy, it could be used anywhere, anywhere there's an industry group.
Thank you. So I think this next question is for you, Hans, but then Joie and Angus, I would love to hear your thoughts as well. I'm going to read it out of the chat box, but it says, would you say some of your growers might use this as a basis to get HGAP, harmonized GAP, if needed? They could add records and successfully pass that audit if needed for markets that require that. Or is it more specifically to create a program that is distinct from GAP, HGAP? So Hans, if you want to tackle that first, but then Joie and Angus, if you have anything else you'd like to add.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so the leafy greens supplement is a way of using the CAPS program and all of its benefits, but adding on, like a la carte menu, adding on the daily records and many of the other things where it actually falls short of the harmonized GAP record standard. So that is an example. The LGS is there now of a benchmarked add-on. It's still distinct from GAP and HGAP. So it would not make a lot of sense, I think, to have the CAPS Plus LGS and have a harmonized GAP auditor come and actually audit that, unless they decided they're going to train specifically for that program and then audit it. Because of that it's slightly different organized, you have to kind of learn your way around the system, that kind of thing. So that said, we do have a harmonized GAP and Primus and Global GAP auditor that's been doing this for 10 years, that's helped design the LGS and train the auditors. So we're kind of, in terms of interpretation of this stuff, we're pretty similar. I'm not sure if that's helpful.
Yeah, I'll just say that, again, I'm not sure how many, demographically, I don't know that there's a ton of 10-acre growers out there selling into national grocery chains. So, for me, no, I don't think I could do HGAP at this point. The way it is now, I just don't think economically I could justify it. So I have 3-4 employees, and I'm not dedicating one of them to filling out boxes and checking things off and just doing all that. And then on top of it, I'm not even sure if we have an auditor in our area anymore. So that's just would be the last time I talked to a consultant about it, he said it's not worth your time.
Yeah, and Tony and I were talking about it this morning, but you have to pay for that gap auditor. So their travel, their time, so financially, it's pretty far out of.
I mean, it'd be a huge burden that when the markets are as tight as they are, for you to throw away another $5,000 to $10,000 a year would be, because it's kind of like throwing it away. You're just paying for somebody to drive from Massachusetts or who knows what state now they'd have to come from. So
There's some efficiencies that I'll just say real quick, that the driving's not as much. It probably costs $300 to $400 to do the CAPS Plus with the on-farm audit, which is coming through, versus, at least $1 or $2 grand probably for harmonized gap. And we've looked into that. So that's the difference just on the cost end.
Thank you. And Angus and Joie, I want to let you know, you did get an awesome presentation, exclamation point, in the chat box, and a thank you. And Angus, I want to just follow up on something real quick that you said, that this program has really helped you build education and a culture around food safety. So I'd love to hear from you, and then also from Joie, just how it's helped you learn from other farmers and how it's helped other farmers learn from you about produce safety.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't get out and interact with other farmers a ton, but I think there is a fairly tight-knit farming community in this state, and these are things we talk about and try to solve together. And I think just like any sort of topic related to growing, food safety is like, we're all trying to figure out what's the best way to handle this. I think Hans kind of highlighted that at this point, pretty much everybody in this state and surrounding the kind of major markets in this state are CAP certified, because everybody's kind of bought into it, and they're not even required to do it. So I think that, yeah, there is a lot of collaboration. Like I said, the plans were accessible to me when I got started, which made the process a lot less daunting. One of the things that Hans emphasizes, or the program emphasizes, is like, keep it simple, make it attainable. Don't write 10 paragraphs on something that you think somebody else wants to hear. What are you actually going to do? It's kind of a holistic system. Like, don't promise more than you can deliver. And then, if that's not good enough, somebody's going to give you feedback that that's not good enough. And I don't think it's setting the bar that it's bare minimum that you need to meet. It's just what is the, every farm is different, and to try to fit everybody into one box on how you do things doesn't make a lot of sense for smaller scale growers.
Thanks, Angus. You should take my job.
No, thanks. But and just with the employees, it's pretty simple to kind of like, hey, we don't deal with areas if there's any sort of fecal contamination from wildlife. We don't go harvest things or wash things with dirty hands. We keep things clean. Like, these are, it's not too esoteric, and everybody can get on the same page pretty easily. So it makes it makes a lot more sense, and it's a lot more approachable.
Thank you. Joie, did you all have anything else you'd like to add to that?
I think Angus really touched on a lot of it. We definitely talked to other farms. Other farms have reached out to us and asked for help with their CAPS plans, and it is really helpful. I'll totally agree with Angus. Like, even though every farm is different, you can look and see what somebody else, has in their plan or what they're doing. And you're like, oh, I could do that. I could, compared to what equipment we have or whatever. But that is really helpful. And Vermont is a small community, and most of us farmers, especially the organic ones, we all we all kind of talk to each other at certain times. So that is really helpful.
Great, thank you. Well, we have just about bumped up to our time limit. So I do want to point out that there's an evaluation link in the box that really helps us. This webinar is generously supported by the Food and Drug Administration, and getting y'all's feedback helps us continue to improve the education. Angus, Joie, Hans, this just community aspect is so inspiring. So thank you for the work that you do, both around growing healthy, delicious food and growing it in a low risk way, and just creating a better environment for all of us to live in.
Can I shout out to, give a shout out to Vern? I see Vern Grubinger here as well. And honestly, I think it was a phone call with him in 2014 that I had from from Kazakhstan, where I was teaching and on a leave. And we were like, she pitched this idea, which was for the CAPS thing, and has really supported, built the trust over decades in this group to begin with. And then, so, definitely couldn't be here without that guy. You'll see him there. He's crying. He has a little crying thing that's come up, but helping to get the money and write the reports and that kind of thing.
You made it all happen, Hans.
Team effort.
Well, y'all, on that very high, happy note, we'll say goodbye and thank you to everyone for attending today. Thank you again, Angus, Joie, Hans. Appreciate what y'all do, and everyone else, we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Billy.
Bye, y'all.